Hello, y'all. Welcome back to the YouTube channel called Walk With Me. I hope everyone is having a great day. I hope everyone is able to find peace, able to find that inner place within where they can go to rest at. That's the goal here, is for us all, everyone in this world, to find that inner place within to go within to rest at. Because until you have that, you'll always be running from thing to thing, from place to place, from person to person, from activity to activity, just in a constant rush. A rush because you just can't simply sit here and be alone. It's the last thing you want. You have to question, why is that the last thing that I want? Why would I rather do anything else than sit here and be alone? I'd rather go run 5 miles and just sit here and be alone. I'd rather go lift weights and do all this strenuous activity than sit here and be alone. I'd rather go and put so much effort into trying to chase after a career than sitting here being alone, when in actuality it takes a lot more. Well, kind of, not really, but it's seemingly so. It takes a lot more to go out and a lot more physical effort to go out and do all these other things, but we don't want to invest in that mental strain. We want to avoid the mental strain, and we'll strain ourselves physically to exhaustion, but we do anything to avoid that mental strain. Today's video is called Identifying the Problem, and I want to call it this because we have to make sure that some of us, we don't see the problems. I wrote the other day that some of us, the problem is that we just don't see the problem. For some of us, the problem is that we see the problem, but we don't do anything about the problem. And then for some of us, the problem is we see the problem and we try to do something about the problem, but our efforts to fix the problems are unsuccessful. We're unsuccessful in fixing the problem, so we see it, which is better than not seeing it. That's the first step. Now we do something about the thing that we see instead of not doing something about the thing that we see. This is the second step. Now we do something about the thing that we see. And now we're unsuccessful in actually treating the thing we see. So we're taking steps forward. See, the first step is seeing the problem. If you don't see the problem, that's your first step, is seeing the problem. If you see the problem, your second step is going about how you're gonna fix the problem. What are you gonna do to, how you gonna treat the illness? It's like when a doctor gets a patient. And if they just told the patient, okay, you have cancer, all right, go, you have a good day, they wouldn't be a very good doctor. Now, if they treat the patient, say, okay, you have cancer, we're gonna do this and this and this to try to fix it. It's like, okay, but you would rather them do whatever they do to fix it and it actually be successful than it to be unsuccessful. So some of us, it's not that you don't see the problem. It's not that you don't even make the efforts to fix it. You're on the third problem. Each problem gets harder to solve because the first problem is pretty easy to see the problem. A lot of us see the problem. It's a little bit harder to treat the problem. And it's even a little bit more harder to treat the problem successfully. So we're going through these 3 steps. The first stage is see the problem. Do you see the problem? Do you see what the problem is? Do you see why you're suffering or why you're this way or that way? Do you see the problem? The second question is, have you made any effort to actually treat the problem? And the third question is, have you had any success throughout trying to treat the problem? If you had some success throughout, then that's your light. That tells you that it can be fixed, even if it comes back again and again. You've seen evidence that there's a light. So I just want to talk about how we make a lot of efforts to fix problems with unsuccessful solutions, because the solutions we choose have nothing to do with the problem. So a lot of people, they have this problem and then they start, okay, I'm going to exercise every day. And exercise isn't bad. And maybe it will distract you from the problem for a while, but it doesn't treat the problem. The problem isn't that you don't exercise. There's a deeper problem. Look for the actual problem, not distract yourselves with other activities to cover it up, because it'll work for a while until it doesn't. And then all that happens, Tony Evans said, all you do is create a delay in the process of the problem coming back up again. That's all you're doing. So it can feel good because the problem seems to be gone, but all you're doing is creating a delay for the same problem to come up again, because until the problem itself is treated, until you get down to the root of the problem will continuously come up again and again and again and again and again and again until you get to the root of where the problem is and you find out the solution. Because once you get to the root, then the solution comes right up to you. What is the root of your problems? And you don't have to discuss this with anyone. You don't have to tell me. I'm asking you to ask yourself. You don't have to talk to anyone about it. That's the thing that we make it seem like nowadays, is that you just need to talk about it. You just need to let it out. And that can be satisfying, but guess what? You let it out, you talk about it, you feel good for the moment, and guess what happens? The problem comes up again. So what do? Okay, I'm going to talk about it. You talk about it again, and guess what happens? The problem comes up again, because you're not treating the problem. You're just doing things that make you feel better about it or distract you from it in the moment. So I go exercise. I go talk to my friends. I go hang out with some friends. I go play basketball. I go do something I like to do. I go to work. I find a career that I can dive into and indulge myself into. And for a while, it really works. You really start to think that this is the solution until you think this is the solution until it isn't, until the problem that you have delayed comes back up again. And it's right there, sitting underneath all that stuff you're doing is that same problem right there underneath. And it's just sitting there waiting to be triggered again. So then when it's triggered, it'll come back up. And guess what? You'll realize, oh man, I thought I fixed it. But all I did was distract myself from it. I found something to turn my attention away from the problem. I didn't treat it. It can seem like it was treated because the problem seemingly isn't here anymore. But all I did was turn my head the other direction. So the problem is to my left. Instead of me going to the problem and getting my tools out to start to stitch it up and fix it, I turn my head to the right and look away. And I start walking the other direction away from the problem, thinking with the delusion in my mind that the problem isn't still sitting exactly the same place it was, just because I can't see it in the moment. So just because I can't see it right now, I look the other way from the problem. I delude myself into thinking that because I don't see it, the problem isn't there. Because it isn't bothering me in the moment, it's not still sitting there underneath everything. Treat the problem. Get to the root. Think. We have to use our minds and think. Take a break from your phone. Get off your phone. Give yourself 30 to 60 minutes a day to just sit there in silence. Just sit there in silence and experience what's going on in this moment. And when you do this, the answers will start coming to you. The problem will start to show itself. But the thing is, in order for you to treat the problem, you have to sit there with the problem. You can't treat a wound without getting pretty close to it. You have to get pretty close to it, almost closer than you are now. The problem will become even closer to you. And no one wants to be face to face with their problems, with their fears, with their anxieties, with their worries, with their desires that they don't like, with their evil desires. No one wants to be face to face with them. But it's necessary in order to treat them. So by coming face to face with them, you're looking directly at them and they're right in front of you. And they're not hiding from you. And you're not hiding from them. And once you get to that point, now you can start to really get to know the problem a little more. You can really start to get to study the problem. You can start to get to know it. You can start to become familiar with it. See, because when you turn your head the other way, you abandon the problem and you don't become familiar with it. So it's still confusing you. It's still troubling you. It's still causing you to just do everything to get away from it. Because you simply won't just turn around, look at the problem, and face it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not judging you for it. It's hard to face the problem. The problem is very difficult to face. But what you just have to realize is I have two options. Either I keep running away from this and let this problem have me living in fear for the rest of my life, or I put the faith that I can face this problem and I can find a solution, that there is a solution. I'm confident that there is a solution to this problem. This is why I believe this becomes it'll automatically turn into a spiritual thing, because all of our problems, at the root of them all, is something spiritual. It's something spiritual at the root. So this is why when we really want to face our problems, we have to go to the spiritual realm. We have to go to that spiritual place, because the problems aren't in the physical. The physical is there. It's solid. It can be touched. It has no real. It's nothing really to it. It's just there. It can be touched. It can be felt. But the spiritual is where life happens. This is where life happens. And you're going to have to take a deep dive. You're going to really have to take a deep dive into yourself. It's time to stop running away. It's time to stop avoiding yourself. It's time to slow down. Take a breath, relax. Just sit back for a second. Just take a breath, slow down. What's all the rush for? What are you trying to get to? Why this after this, after that, after that, after that? Just slow down. And then something great will happen. When you just quit, you kind of give up. Something great happens. Something very great happens when you surrender. Something very profound happens when you surrender. God comes. God comes. The truth comes to assist you. You're not doing this alone. You have to fight against that evil within you. That's the problem. The problem is evil. I'm not talking about evil on the outside. I'm talking about the evil in ourselves. That's the problem. Not the evil in the other person over there. That's not the problem. The problem is the evil in ourselves. Each and every one of us. Each individual. If we can stop pointing the finger at everyone else and look within ourselves and say, wow, there's a lot of evil within me, the world will start to change. Because the world itself, the planet, the earth, is good. The earth is good. There's nothing fundamentally evil about this world. But what's evil is the beings in this world and the desires carried within us. That's where the evil is. And if we can each cleanse ourselves of that evil within, how could evil ever be in the world? If it's not within no individual in the world, how could the evil ever touch anyone? We have to purge away this evil within. We're divided, a nation divided, a country divided. And it shouldn't be that way. We should be united. And once we all turn inward, we can all become friends and helpers of each other in this battle. I really see a world in the future where this is possible. I see that this being a possibility. And it's not far away. It's very close. It's very close. This is a possibility for us all to be able to purify our heart. Everyone has this opportunity. There's no one that doesn't have this opportunity. You don't have to go and find it. You don't have to go and get it. You don't have to go and get money to buy it. It's right here in this moment, your opportunity to purify your heart and mind and come closer to the truth. And we all have these gifts and things within that we haven't discovered yet, because we haven't dived into the spiritual world of things. We're so stuck in the physical, where we can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. We don't dive into the spiritual, what cannot be seen, what cannot be heard, what cannot be touched, what cannot be felt, but what is known. And the last topic I want to discuss is the way we do with relationships in marriage, even marriage, which is a spiritual. I just want to remind that marriage is not what people have made it out to be. Marriage is a spiritual tool, a spiritual. Marriage is a spiritual commitment. It's for the purpose of the spiritual. So if you're married and it's not for the purpose of the spiritual, see, a lot of us use marriage as a thing that's like for a personal thing, like as a personal trophy, or like some women, maybe, I'm married. They can feel kind of, I'm pretty sure women can feel pretty proud about that. I'm married. They have the ring on their finger. They can feel really good about it. It becomes more of a personal thing. Or even the man, I have a wife. It becomes a personal thing, but what it's really for is for the spiritual. It's a tool for us all. It says, in order to avoid fornication, let each man have his own wife and each woman her own husband. Let me go to the scriptures. One second. Let me see. Give me 1 second. I just want to bring back in the purpose of marriage. It is not something that's just for fun, or it's not like having a girlfriend or having a boyfriend. And then I even want to talk about that, having boyfriends and girlfriends and things like that. Let's see. 1 Corinthians. Okay, so building the temple, no. Temple furniture, no. Dedication, no. Oh, I'm in Chronicles, I'm sorry. Bear with me, y'all, please. Don't click off yet. I'm almost there, I promise. Oh my gosh, I'm in second. I'm sorry, y'all. Just 1 second. Please bear with me. Okay, almost there. Okay, I'm just gonna search it up in order to avoid fornication. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Okay. It says, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote on to me. Hear this. I want you to hear this and listen to this. It is good for a man not to touch a woman. Understand that. So marriage is not a necessity. It is not essential. That's the first thing I want to highlight. It says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication. So this gives us the exact purpose of marriage. To avoid fornication. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication. So that gives us marriage's purpose. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Now he gives us commands. Let the husband render unto his wife due benevolence, which is basically love, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. It says, the wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. So it's that submission. And I want to talk about, we're submitted to one another here. Because it says the wife hath not power over her own body, but the husband hath not power over his own body, but the wife. So this is a mutual submission. The husband is submitting himself to his wife, doing whatever he can to serve her, whatever he can to help her, whatever he can to nurture her, whatever he can to bring her whatever she needs. And also the wife is doing the same to her husband, the husband doing whatever she can to serve him, whatever she can to help him, whatever she can to make sure that he's okay. It's a selfless thing. And it also says, defraud ye not one another, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Defraud ye not the other, except it be with consent for a time. So it's okay to separate, is what it's saying. So that, why is it okay? It's not okay to separate so that you can go out and do what you want and speak. It's that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer. So basically for a spiritual purpose. It's okay. And then come together again so that Satan does not tempt you for your incontinency. Incontinency means inability to control yourselves. Then he goes on to say, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment. I speak this by permission. You see, now I give you permission to do this, but you don't have to, because it's by permission, not of commandment. He says, for I would that all men were even as myself. So he's saying, I would rather that all men not be married. I would rather that all men to, it's better for you not to be married in a way, is what he's saying. Well, that's what he's saying. I'm not even going to say in a way. That's exactly what he's saying. He says, but every man hath this proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. If they cannot contain, if they cannot control themselves, then let them marry. So he gives us permission. It's a way of permission with a commitment. See, because if you just go out and you go and have sex, you don't have to commit. But when you marry, marriage is a commitment. And it takes work, it takes time, it takes you to dedicate yourself to it. For it is better to marry than to burn. And unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. So he's saying this is a commandment from the Lord. He said, I command, yet not I, but the Lord. So this is from God. This is God's command, is what he's saying. Let not the wife depart from her husband. But, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband. And let not the husband put away his wife. You hear that? This changes the whole loop. This changes the whole mindset, the whole picture on marriage. It says, let not the wife depart from her husband. Also, it's saying at the end, let not the husband depart from his wife. But and if they do depart from each other, let them remain unmarried. And when he says unmarried, that includes no dating other people, no having sex with other people, no doing anything sexual with anyone else. Remain unmarried. That doesn't mean, okay, let her remain unmarried, but she can go out and date and see all these added things we've added. Dating is not a part of this. Dating is something from the world. Dating lacks commitment. Dating is going from person to person, experience to experience, which only feeds the devil. It only feeds the devil, because when you're finally time to settle down and get with someone, now you're tempted by all these things that you've done in the past. Now you have to suffer. It says, but to the rest speak I, not the Lord. So he even specifies here, this is me speaking, this is not from the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. It says, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband? Or what knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? So it says so this brings it to another important purpose. Two believers are in bondage. So once you're two believers and you're together and you start pursuing each other, you're headed towards marriage. It's pretty simple. You're headed towards marriage. The moment two believers come together and God brings them together, this is the marriage. This is where the marriage starts. From my point of view, this is where the marriage starts. It starts when God brings two believers together and they meet and they begin to date and pursue each other. This is the beginning of marriage. In such cases, it says the two are bound to one another. That's it. Once God brings you together and you both believe, that's it. That's the last one. There's nothing after this one. This is it. So if you do depart, remain unmarried, but you can come back together. Remain unmarried, but you can come back together. But it says, if you're a believer and you're married to an unbeliever, you are not bound in such cases. You're not bound to an unbeliever. It's only when you both believe and you both truly believe and you're both going after this that you become bound to one another. I feel like I'm talking too much about this subject. I'm sorry, y'all. This video is going to be pretty long. But I just want to recap this video saying, first, identify the problem. Ask yourself, where is the problem? Where does the problem exist? Then ask yourself, how can I treat this problem? And then what you have to realize is you're going to try to treat the problem, and your efforts are going to be leading you in the right place. But at the beginning, you're going to be treating the problem wrongly because you don't see it quite clearly enough. You see that it's a problem, but you don't quite see where the problem is exactly. So you're going to be treating it wrong at first. You have to accept that I'm going to be doing this wrong at first. We have to learn to walk like a baby. When a baby is young and it can't walk yet, it has to keep standing up and trying to walk and fall. You keep standing up and try to walk and fall again until it can finally start to walk. So walking at one point was impossible for us to do. It was very difficult, but now it's easy. So in the same way, once you first start trying to fix this problem, you finally stop running away from it. You finally face it. You're going to stand up and you're going to fall. You're going to stand up, you're going to fall. You're going to stand up, you're going to fall. You're going to stand up, take a few steps, and then fall again. You're going to stand back up, take a few more steps, walk a little further, fall again. Then you're going to learn how to walk pretty good. You're going to get to a point you're going to fall again. And you're going to get back up and learn how to walk again and fall again. And then you're going to keep walking until you finally learn how to walk. Now we don't even have to think to walk. It's just the way that we are. The same way will happen with this. We won't even have to think to do these things. It'll just be the way that we naturally operate in. Thank you all for listening. Y'all have a good one.